think to call any female producers for our all-female label. Yeah, I called all three of them. Esther Dean is on a yacht with Rihanna, and Hugo Riddick is also on that yacht, and Sia is lost in a wig somewhere,
So apparently in pop music, in this case meaning popular charting music, women make up only about 2% of producers. Is it a bad thing that most of the music we listen to is produced by men? Music production, and we're talking about like studio production here, not like live music production, because that's also a music producer, but that's a whole nother thing. And being a studio music producer is not only about having the ear and the like musical idea, but also the ability to sort of shape the sound into the end product that you want, either through being a musician and sound engineer yourself, or have the ability to explain what you want to musicians and sound engineers and, you know, everyone else. But that still makes you a producer. You can be the vibe guy, you know?
Do you play instruments?
Barely.
Do you know how to work a soundboard?
No. I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music.
You must know something.
Well, I know what I like and what I don't like, and I'm decisive about what I like and what I don't like.
So what are you being paid for?
The confidence that I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel has proven helpful for artists.
So whether you're as a producer, if you're a musician and a sound engineer, you know, that's great. Some producers are, but others are not. And then you have to have the ability to explain that idea and explain to the sound engineers and the musicians how to get your end product. So you have to have the imagination, you have to know what you want and have the ability to explain it to the people you're working with. When you start out in music production, you know, downloading some DAW and just playing around with it, you are a newbie, you have to figure things out, and it might take a while for you to feel like you're ready to be called a music producer, even though you're producing things for yourself and maybe for friends, maybe you're putting it out online. But music production is such a wide-spanning field, you know, there's endless genres and there's endless skills to learn, so you'll never be finished. You know, you'll never be finished learning or developing your skill. So that means it's hard to know when you're ready to be called a producer, you know, because there's also this imposter syndrome, like, what are they gonna think if I call myself a producer and they don't think I'm good enough?
Oftentimes, I take off my ego hat when I'm in the studio.
Because it's also personal, because the producer is just a human. They can know everything there is to know, but they still have their tastes and, you know, their preferences and all that. You'll never be finished. Like, when are you good enough? I don't know. You won't know. But it seems to me, for some reason, and this is just my observation, my personal opinion, so take it for what it is, but it seems to me like men might be more confident in that area, that they're quicker to be like, I am this thing, you know? I'm gonna learn to be this thing, I am this thing. And it seems to me as though women are more prone to think like, no, that's for the pros, that's for the technical guys. And there are, you know, we grew up with mindsets like that technical stuff was more for the boys, and it's just not true. But it feels as though that's still ingrained in us to some degree. There are mindsets ingrained in us there that are not great and not true. And it seems as though women are more, and again, this is my observation and my experience as a woman, as though we're more prone to have this imposter syndrome and think like, now that's for the pros, it's for the people who already have the skills, instead of thinking, I can learn those skills and become the pro. I know I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot, and I've felt it regarding every aspect of who I am as a singer, a musician, and dare I say a producer. Even with like disclaimers about it being low-key, just producing my own covers. Don't.
I always thought of myself as a composer first. And when I was in graduate school, I was confronted with the bleakness of what a career in music composition could look like, especially as a woman.
But wait, hold up, wait. You've seen many women credited on huge hits, you say? Of course you have, but usually as songwriters, right? Not necessarily producers. So what's the difference between a songwriter and a producer? Songwriters are people who write full or partial songs, and it includes lyrics and/or top line, like the melody that the main vocal sings. And I'm not talking about instances like when Scott, Ariana Grande's dancer, when he got a songwriting credit on 34 plus 35 for the line, just give me them babies. Just like, you know, small lines. And sometimes people get songwriting credits for that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about songwriters who write songs. Some songwriters may only write the lyrics, while others also write the melody. Some can do only the melody and they're still credited as a songwriter, and some only do the lyrics. And we all know, you know, songwriting credits can be shared if there are multiple people writing a song, lyrics, melody, whatever. But some songwriters also make the full production and the arrangements and everything like that. And that's, you know, the line between producer and songwriter becomes sort of blurry. And that's where it seems like men more often get the credit for producing, while women stay more in the songwriting categories. Producers obviously come in many forms and have different skills and specialties. You have very technical and meticulous producers who might be skilled sound engineers or even full-blown musicians and who are into every single aspect of the production. And then you have people who might only make the beats and they're still producers, like that's their thing, that's what they do, and they have sound engineers and musicians, maybe, if they're not doing everything on the computer, but you know, they have people doing the other stuff.
When I say musicians, it's not all the time someone that can play an instrument. Yeah. You know, a person that can chop and break down a crazy sample is a musician to me, because that's a lost art. You know?
And then you have self-proclaimed just vibe guys like Rick Rubin, who I think said, I'm just the hype guy. No, I'm just the vibe guy. But in essence, what they do, what producers do, is they see the song as a whole. They see it as a finished product. They see what the song is, what it can be, and how to get it to be where it needs to be, you know? So more often than not, whether they're a musician or not, producers will have ideas about the arrangement. So that's where the being able to tell musicians what they want if you're not a musician yourself comes in. But more often than not, they have ideas about the arrangement, how they want the vocal to sound on a particular song, and how to get that song to be what the audience needs it to be, to make it interesting for the audience, to make it even something new, or maybe something nostalgic. Who knows? They have to have the skill set to be able to convey all sorts of messages. And we'll get into all sorts of messages. All sorts of messages is kind of the point. Because music production is storytelling. It's vibe setting, obviously, but it's also storytelling. And seeing how women are huge consumers of music, and we make up a big part of that economy, and how we're half the population, basically, in binary terms, wouldn't it be beneficial to have some of those stories told by women and have more vibes set by women, you know, for women? Stories told from women's perspective, vibes and things we like from women's perspectives.
Like even if you don't agree with what someone is saying, but if they're saying it and you know that they believe it, you resonate with it on some level. You don't have to agree with it to respect it and appreciate. It's just human expression. People really being them, allowing to show themselves is a beautiful thing, whether you agree with them or not.
Because when people share from their perspective, we can relate to each other and we can feel better about difficulties that we all face, because we realize we're not alone, we're in it together. Maybe something that you've been feeling is totally normal, but you've been feeling that it's only you. You've been feeling isolated and kind of weird about it until you heard a peer talk about the same thing. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. It doesn't have to be about the big serious issues and deep emotions and all that big stuff. It can be about silly little everyday things and just finding common joy, you know? It can be sad, happy, enraging, empowering, anything. But they're stories that men can't necessarily provide for women because they don't have the same experiences, you know? It makes sense. And this isn't only an issue in like men, women, like binary things. It's also if you see a white producer producing for someone black who has a story to tell about their life and their experiences as a black person, a white producer might not get that the same way a black producer would. So it's not necessarily that it won't work, but it's just a different feel. So with producers who can't necessarily create that vibe in the studio for a woman to be safe to tell that story, or, you know, it can feel kind of weird too if they're all men and they can't relate to what you're saying, you know? And that's not because women are so precious and fragile and special. No, it's like I said, imagine two men just from different backgrounds. They can't necessarily relate to the same stories. That's it. So to include people with music, and that's sort of the producer's job, because they're making the track be for the people, like how to make it interesting for the people, you know? How to sell it to a certain group or to everyone for world domination, you know? So to include people with music, to reach all those listeners and have them engaged and to relate to the music, you have to have storytellers who they can actually relate to. And that includes women, genderqueer people, people of different races, ethnicities, religions, sexual orientations, everything, you know, everyone. Without them, there's no one to tell their story. And there are definitely people out there ready to listen and relate to those stories.
Wendy Carlos helped Bob Moog design the original Moog modular.
That's crazy. I didn't know she helped him design it. That's okay.
Wendy was instrumental in that. So because of the work of a trans woman, Moog really came to life.
And without them, without a producer who is able to sort of tell those stories, to get those stories to those people, you know? And as a producer, working with someone in a studio, part of your job, like I mentioned, is also making people comfortable to be there and do the optimal job and tell their story in an optimal way that can reach people. So you as a producer, you want to bring the best out of that person in the studio. But if you don't understand their perspective, you might not be able to do that. And again, it's not just about hard or sad or difficult stuff. It's also about the mundane, everyday things, joy, all that it entails to be a person in that situation that you as a producer should sort of be able to relate to, or at least bring out of them. So why are women producers so rare in pop music? Because I don't think women producers in general are that rare, but they are rare in the charting, like I said, popular charting music, pop music. And I think it's more about them not getting recognition. Again, my opinion, my thoughts, my observations on the whole thing. I think it's more about them not getting recognition, and I'll explain why.
And I have a theory that in fact women were attracted to electronic music because it was independent and you didn't need the infrastructure of the conventional musical world that really had no openings for you.
So we don't hear about them, and the thing is, a lot of women who are producers don't even call themselves producers. For example, a lot of singers, a lot of women singers know how to vocal produce, and they do it really, really well. But they think, everyone knows how to do this, and they don't see themselves as producers, even though vocal production is a valid form of production. It's music production. What if you have an a cappella group? Are you not a producer because it's only vocal production? Silly, I know, but it is a bit silly if we're being honest. So yeah, women who know how to vocal produce don't necessarily call themselves producers, even though they are. Nobody calls Ariana Grande a producer, even though she is very good at vocal production and she does a lot of her own vocal production. I don't hear anybody talking about her being a producer. She is, but you don't hear it. On the other hand, you have guys who might be able to only make beats, and that's the part of the production they know, just as the vocal production is the part that the singers know. But they're called producers, and they don't blink an eye, they don't bat an eyelid. What do you say? Norwegian brain. Yeah, they don't think about that. They call themselves producers. They are, because they made the beat. But what's the difference? It's both are production, both are valid. So many women fly under the radar because we think that we're not good enough, that we don't have, the full skill set that it takes to be a producer, because we don't value what we already have, like men typically more so do and still call themselves producers. But we're afraid of that. And we might not even feel like we have a place in the industry because it's typically been run by men, so it hasn't really seemed like an option to a lot of women. But we need to dismantle that idea and get ourselves the confidence of a mediocre white middle-aged man. But for real, we need to unlearn these imposter syndrome mindsets. You need opportunities to grow, and you can only get those opportunities if you call yourself what you are. You know, you have to start believing in that, because if not, who's gonna know you're a producer? Who's gonna call you? And I don't want to put all the responsibility on women. Of course, we can take more space and do all that, but I think there's also some responsibility on the men who already have that privilege, who have that space, to open it up for women. And I think a good place to start is by acknowledging that it is not inclusive to women and has not been, and that they could be more inclusive to women. That's a great place to start.
Do you have any females on your producer team?
We are redefining gender, and we only hire female postmates.
And I don't feel like there's necessarily malicious intent, like men shutting out women and stuff like that. No, I think it's because all the producers they already know are men. So when they need someone on a project, if they're sick or whatever, if they need someone, they're gonna call their male colleagues because that's who they know. They already have their foot inside the door. They know about them, but they don't know about the women. So that's where men need to be more on the lookout maybe, and sort of lift women up, as well as we need to step up and take that space. So yeah, I don't think they have a bad intention. I just think that they forget maybe how privileged they are. And women are new in this game, meaning we don't have those buddies high up there, which is why you don't see us produce on that level, you know, in charting pop music as much. 2%, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. That's oof. So yeah, we don't have those buddies up there. We don't get called. And again, nothing wrong with that, but I think it would be beneficial to everyone if men were just more aware and actively trying to level the playing field again, because that will yield the best results in music.
I want to say thank you to the women who have gone first, changed the conversation, and inspired young girls for generations to come. I want to give credit to the women who have not only made it, but it made sure that we all have a chance to thrive. Let's celebrate women who are blazing the way.
It has to do with representation, you know, and if you can't represent all those people, you can't reach them. So it's beneficial to everyone to have more stories being told. Please use your privilege to open up for more perspectives in the music industry. And my dear women, again, please dare to take up space, dare to step up and say that you're a producer, throw your hat in the ring, have them know your name, speak of yourself as a producer, know what you are, know what you want to be, learn the skills, do the thing, dare to get those opportunities that you need to grow, learn the skills, become that pro. You can definitely do it, and you have so much to bring to the table, and you deserve to eat. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. Be respectful in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.